So this is how bad my backlog is. I have been meaning to review this since April 2022. I got this at the same time I got the Dr. Wu Blaster. And honestly, I might have never wound up working my way to this were it not for a fan asking me to do it in June. So you know who you are, and thanks for finally kicking me in the butt to get a move on. It's New Age Shattered Glass Starscream. But first, your likes! Please give and maybe subscribe. Also, I want to apologize for forgetting to thank the people who've kept me supplied with pictures of upcoming figures last time. I'm rather scatterbrained at the moment. Anyways, if you want a Legends version of Starscream that does everything right, this is the figure you want. Even if it's like $60. Yes, third-party Legends is expensive, but typically quite worth it, as this is doing basically everything a Starscream should do that even bigger versions deeply fail at, without even coming up to their knee. And in most ways, it's doing it far more elegantly. I cannot begin to tell you how much simpler this thing is than most other Starscreams on the market, and how little that costs this thing. The Deformation Space Starscream, when everything goes perfectly, takes about 14 minutes to transform, and that's if you're on it, remembering that complex conversion flawlessly and making no mistakes. This'll take you about 1, maybe 2. You can still mess it up in some ways, which is frustrating, but when it looks this good, that's insane, considering how overcomplicated every other Starscream wants to be. And what you pay to achieve a transformation that simple is slightly hollow flanks above his hips, a backpack that has kind of a weird degree of standoff from his body, and some pretty average posing, though New Age are typically far from the best on that front. If you want an extraordinarily articulated Legends figure, you go with Magic Squares, all I'm saying. And then maybe you also might find the gap at his waist a little ugly. But outside that, can you really fault the appearance? Ignore the absolutely bitchin' deco, this looks intensely like Starscream. I don't know that his pylons need to have the ability to lean forward, but you don't have to use that if you don't want to. And seriously, this doesn't even have a nose cone on the back. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, there's never an excuse for that. I don't know why, none of these ever use the Titans Return Blitzwing nose cone transformation to achieve this, but here it at least makes sense because that is what they're using to fill out his sides even a little. If I had one more ask for this robot mode, I wish that the wings could splay back a little, but they can only hinge up and down, so that's less than perfect, but it's still fine. And then appreciating this thing's paint job is easy. Yes, it's not the traditional Starscream, but I just felt more drawn to this version at this scale. And the only reason I can think of as to why is because of how sick these colors are. You know how much I love Skyfire, and his colors on this dude's design just rocks. New Age is the company that paints their figures probably better than nearly anyone else, and I'm not much one for paint, but when it's in service of a stark deco like this, even I have to be impressed. And the clear blue plastic in his chest just makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. It just stands out like a gleaming sapphire on this guy's sternum. If I have a negative criticism for this figure, however, it's that it's very panel line heavy, and not in a good way. You will have these nice stretches of solid clean color, and then you just hit a transformation joint and it all starts to fall apart. The forearms and the sides of the legs are the worst offenders here, but I do want to give this thing credit still. The legs are doing kind of a lot, so it's almost remarkable that it still looks this good at all. I also really don't like the very apparent bar that connects his chest to his cockpit, but there isn't much they could do about that. Well, now that I'm thinking about it, what they could do is they could just extend the connector, that way it's filling up this space more evenly, but hindsight is 20/20. The last criticism I can give this thing is that it does not stand easily. Its heels, as with many Starscreams, are very insubstantial, and its backpack, while very flat, does drag a fair bit of this thing's mass backwards. While filming this, I am probably ripping my hair out trying to get this thing to stay standing. But on your shelf, it will only be a minor annoyance, rather than the thing that I'm probably questioning all my life choices dealing with right now. The head is absolutely excellent. I wonder if the non-shattered glass version of this thing has a different, less stoic face, because Starscream is a premium smirker, but this still captures his personality relentlessly. I can just hear his shrill warble looking at it. Paint's clean, despite the head being so tiny, and the sculpt is sharp. It's a mostly fantastic Starscream head, though it does suffer from a pronounced lack of neck. However, that does feel kind of fine for this version of the character. I can see good guy Starscream having a rigid high-collar shirt. As for accessories, he comes with his null rays, which are these even really accessories with Starscream? Like, is Megatron's arm cannon an accessory? This is not an aspect of the character you remove or put in a baggie like ever. It's just part of his basic design. Then this thing also comes with 2 clear swords. Both of them are complete, and while they both probably are better than the Hasbro Shattered Glass Tetrajet Starscream's version of them, there is something to be said about the gimmicks with that one. It was really cool how they could fuse into one gigantic broadsword, and how they were 2 single-edged swords otherwise. Then he comes with a pretty useful stand, as the figure does have some issue standing, though you may be confused why it's shaped this way. Part of New Age's evil genius marketing scheme is to include one of these with each repaint of their Seekers. By buying enough of them, you can form an Earthside space bridge. And I'll be honest, as expensive as it would be to get the whole 12-piece set of their Seekers, or however crazy many there are, this does tempt me. And it comes with a whole series of adapters that I don't know what they're for. Like, why does this have a claw mount when the figure has a flight stand port already? I mean, it's useful for figures other than this guy, but why include that? Is it just them being cool dudes? So solid accessories. I don't know if there's a Starscream out there that's not going to come with some form of null rays, so that's basically a given. But the swords are kind of iconic for this version of the character, and they're something that could have pretty easily been left on the cutting room floor if New Age was feeling even a tad greedy. And the stand is just a solid bonus that if you go in for the whole set, you get even more use out of. Then you get to the posability, and it's really pretty average. Head feels a little more restrictive than it actually is. There's a good side to side and a slight up, though that's far from enough for a Starscream, plus a difficult-to-access swivel, so not terrible. Shoulders pull slightly more than 90, but they have a habit of sinking into themselves along with the sideways on the elbows. Normal 90 elbows when those are working properly, and a wrist swiv, though you can kind of cheat really hard to fake maximum elbows. Ab crunch below the normal swivel, so that's good to have. Legs can kick over his head going forward and are unimpeded back into the side. Normal 90 knees, and feet with a toe up and a good ankle pivot. So this has an ab crunch, which is nice, but outside that, this is pretty standard. Head, arms, legs, pretty much everything works as well as you would expect on a normal chug figure, when you might anticipate something a little better from third party. Not bad, but there's a lot of room for improvement here. Then the transformation is really very simple and really pretty solid. This does the absolute genius thing of having the sides of Starscream's chest form a large part of his nose cone, allowing that aspect to just vanish from the alt mode altogether, doing a decent job of hiding the head and giving his arms more space to work than normal. The worst part of the whole conversion is the rear wings coming out of the legs take a weird finagling to get out, and they have a tendency to pop off their ball joints. But overall, this is one of the most smooth Starscream transformations ever put to plastic. It's probably bordering on the level of difficulty as the Earthrise one, when the figure on a whole is doing absolutely everything better at a smaller scale. And then the jet mode is positively excellent. This is one of the best approximations of his alt mode out there, and it manages to be extremely sleek when this mode often suffers on most figures. There's no bloat in his fuselage like the Cream of the Stars often wants to do. The underside has a mildly gappy nature, but none of the gaps penetrate all the way through the body of the jet. From this angle, you can really see just how much the chest vanishes, and then there's a single tiny peg on the dead center of the back, which is probably the ugliest thing about this whole mode. But you might be able to tell that this is a stunningly clean version of Screamer here, with very little to complain about, and you don't even need to remove the null rays to get to this point, though you probably should move them down because they do wind up in kind of a weird position if you don't. It is clean, it is confident, and it makes the Earthrise look like shit. Well, the Earthrise already looked like shit. It makes it look more like shit. Anyways, this is an overall excellent Legends class Starscream. I don't think Magic Square has done their own version yet, so if you want one, this is kind of your lot, but don't let that take away from this thing. It's kind of amazing. Where most Starscreams seem to overcomplicate themselves to achieve what they need to, this looks at that and goes, nah, it's stupid. And with remarkable simplicity, it makes an excellent robot mode that looks spot on with a very small number of visual flaws. Though the lack of heels is frustrating, as is how much the arms love to bend the ways that you don't want them to. Obviously, it's New Age, so it's painted quite excellently. The posability is normal, which is kind of abnormal for something of this price, but it's not bad enough to hold against this thing in any meaningful way. And then the accessories are a fine feature of this boy. The transformation, unlike most Starscreams, is not cancerous, so that's a welcome surprise. And not only is it not a prolonged period of suffering, it's also just fun. It's a good transformation. And then the alt mode is one of the best jet formers out there. New Age could upscale this and sell it as an actual masterpiece, and people would gladly buy it and have it as their MP Starscream. The best phrase I can think up for this figure is that it is smooth. It's not the best at everything, but at no point does it hit a bumpy patch. If you want a New Age seeker, there is nothing wrong with the figure that should give you pause. Except for the front landing gear on mine constantly wants to fall off. Anyways, before we go, let's thank a patron. And this time it's Seb. I swear I've already done Seb. I swear that already happened. Am I crazy? Anyways, his favorite figure ever is Cybertron Optimus Prime. And I know why, because I still have mine, and while that wound up pretty low on the what's the best Optimus Prime, that's pretty much just because it's the wrong version of the dude. When all things are considered, the Cybertron Optimus was just an awesome toy. It had a super mode that actually felt super, it had a vibe and a cool alt mode, it just looks sick, and it does a lot. Plus, unlike a lot of toys from the era, the posing was actually really solid. I absolutely love this thing to this day, and it was my last Transformers figure, or one of them, for about a decade before I came back to the fandom in like 2017, and that's just fine by me. Anyways, that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.